Meet the Moebian Sixth, the heavily armoured, extensively trained veteran troopers who serve as the backbone of the traitorous forces on Atoma Prime. A stark contrast from the degenerate dregs dancing about in Tertium sewers and flirting with Nurgle spawn, the Moebian Sixth, or simply the Scabs, are a highly efficient and renowned force shaped by a life committed to a shadow war against horrors and abominations beyond comprehension. A regiment fallen far from grace, the Moebian Sixth have now returned to the world they once fought and died to protect, to fight alongside the cult of admonition in their war to free Atoma from the rule of the Imperium. But why? Why are the Moebian Sixth causing so much trouble in Tertium and across Atoma Prime? Why is this distinguished regiment of hardened, loyal soldiers of the Imperium fighting alongside the abominations of Nurgle and the unwashed masses of the cult of admonition? What does the Moebian Sixth really want on Atoma Prime, and why are they so dedicated to the cause? Well, to answer these questions, we must first understand the Darktide. The fringes of the Moebian domain is a region filled with death worlds and hostile environments. It is here at the edge of the sector that loyal defenders of the Imperium, spearheaded by the Moebian Sixth, the best and brightest of the Moebian regiments, fought and died to hold the ever-shifting borders of the Imperium against relentless forces of darkness. Within these unending series of conflicts, appropriately known as the Fringe Wars, swarms of disgusting Xenos species and horrific legions of Chaos forces fought to force an entry point into the Moebian domain and the Segmentum Solar. The conflicts taking place within these Fringe Wars are marked by a ferocity of such magnitude that even the Adeptus Administratum, that beacon of order, wisdom and sensibility, found the reports from this theatre of war deeply distressing. Deeming the details of what the Moebian Sixth faced to be detrimental to the morale of those within the Moebian domain and nearby sectors, exhaustive measures were implemented by the Administratum to prevent distribution of news from the Fringe Wars. Refusing to confront or share details of the grim reality faced by the loyal defenders of the Moebian Sixth, the Administratum collectively dubbed the enemy forces they were facing as the Darktide, an all-encompassing term designed to obscure the true nature of the diverse Xenos and Chaos threats that continually assaulted the fringes of the Moebian domain. The notion of this Darktide, an idea carefully shaped as an image of a shadowy, formless and wicked foe, is deliberately nurtured by the Administratum as to ensure that the local imperial populace retains a justified animosity towards this entity, effectively legitimizing both their daily labour and service to the Emperor, and the absence of many heroic Moebian regiments from their homes and garrisons. And so the Administratum maintained this web of lies, cleverly concealing the unsettling truths of the Fringe Wars to far distant battlefields and infinite labyrinthine archives, all while the Moebian Sixth continued to face countless horrors that defy description. Prolonged deployments exacted a toll of both physical and psychological trauma on the Sixth, leaving many spent and scarred by the experience, while many others instead became increasingly bitter and distant, nurturing a deepening sense of betrayal and anger towards the Imperium. To make matters worse, on the few occasions when the Sixth were approved short leave back to the core worlds, they would discover that their heroic deeds and sacrifices on the fringes went entirely unrecognised and forgotten, courtesy of the thorough screening carried out by the Administratum. The combination of these factors, the intense combat, the horrific and uncountable enemies, the trauma, the insanity, the secret nature of their war and the lack of recognition for their sacrifice, all mixed to shape a new and distorted worldview for the Sixth. And over time, they began to gradually unravel the true nature of the Darktide. For them, it ceased to be an abstract concept of disconnected horrors and instead became an interconnected, tangible, and potent force. For some within the Sixth, this sparked a transformation in their attitudes and demeanour. A sense of pride and purpose took root once more, fueled by their first-hand experience and understanding of the liberating power of the warp. As this new perspective dawned on them, the Sixth found themselves forever changed. Driven by spite, anger, and a deep longing for vengeance, they began to transform. It was as if they were slowly turning into the very enemies they had once fought against for so long. Physical changes manifested, hair loss, loosening skin, and an eerie insensitivity to pain. Ritual scarification became a common practice, and the application of cryptic tattoos in long-dead unknowable languages became a new cosmopolitan trend. The transformation of the Sixth was more than just a shift in allegiance and purpose, it was a fundamental change in who they were. And facing the Darktide alone, out in the dark, they had started to mirror it. A twist of fate that was as unexpected as it was tragic and unnoticed. Out there, in the Forgotten Fringes, the Sixth underwent their transformation fully shielded from the Administratum's ironclad information lockdown. So effective was this veil of secrecy that by the time whispers of their corruption began to surface, Atoma Prime had already fallen prey to a new and devastating plague. A gift from Grandfather Nurgle and the Cult of Admonition. In the chaos that followed, the cult seized their chance, bursting forth from the sub-levels of the great hive cities on Atoma to begin their unholy offensive. And amidst this chaos, the desperate Sector Lord Margrave, ignorant of the Sixth treachery on the fringes, summoned the regiment home to quarantine and quell the rising chaos. For in his eyes, the Sixth was still the valiant, battle-hardened heroes of old. You can almost picture Captain Wolfer's grin upon receiving these orders. His long-awaited return to Atoma will not be as a forgotten hero, but rather as a bearer of a dark and liberating truth. For in the eyes of Wolfer and the Sixth, they were not traitors or heretics, but liberators. Champions of a newfound salvation to be shared by all. As the Shakespeare of our time, Dan Abnett, expertly puts it, they, the Sixth, have been seduced by the creed of the Darktide, and they have come home, not simply to kill and exact vengeance, but more poignantly to share the truth they have uncovered. Atoma Prime, the birthplace for most, if not all, of the regiment, had become the trial where their newfound loyalty and conviction would be thoroughly tested and forged. Yet, the Sixth realised that true dominance in their war against the Imperium demanded more than just strategic skill and battle experience. It necessitated a profound and arcane bond with the powers of the warp, a realm in which they were still rather inexperienced. It was in this realisation that their path converged with that of the Cult of Admonition. The cult, insane devotees to the dark arts of the warp, offered the Sixth exactly what they lacked. Through service to the cult, a group that personified the very truths that the Sixth sought to spread, the Sixth could elevate their already formidable military capabilities to levels beyond mortal understanding. The Sixth, with their diverse and battle-hardened array of troops, heavy support units, demolition squads, snipers, ogrins, and experienced commanders, brought the brains and the brawn. While the Cult of Admonition, with their biological weapons, hordes of infected, gangs of fanatical cultists and their monstrous abominations, brought the fear. But this alliance was not without friction. The Sixth's strict adherence to martial discipline and structured hierarchy was a reflection of their ingrained belief in order and the effectiveness of well-planned strategies. Despite their transformation and the influence of the warp, they still somewhat value precision, control, and the ability to execute complex operations with minimal disorder. This approach not only defined their battlefield tactics, but also continues to shape their internal dynamics and decision-making processes, for the time being at least. For recent communications, particularly those seen during the Carnival missions, suggest a growing trend of disorder within the Sixth, indicating a gradual weakening of their traditional operational discipline. In stark contrast, the Cult of Admission's approach is quite clearly rooted in unpredictability and a certain neglect for discipline and planning. Their style of war, if you can even call it that, seems to rely heavily on the use of overwhelming horde tactics, often employing methods that emphasize shock value and psychological impact. This approach really showcases their affinity for the mindless chaos of battle, favoring an environment of unpredictability and mad impulse over the adherence to meticulously laid battle plans. Their tactics were designed to thrive in the midst of disorder, leveraging the element of surprise and the disarray of unstructured combat to their advantage. Nevertheless, for the time being, the uneasy union between the Scabs and the Dregs continues to serve their shared objective, overthrowing the Imperium in the Moebian domain and spreading the truth of the Darktide. Both factions, in their pursuit of this grand vision, have found a way to harness their distinct methodologies towards a singular, devastating purpose. But for how long this pact will last, who knows? So, the Moebian Sixth, once noble defenders of the Imperium, have succumbed to the very darkness that they once fought against so fiercely. Their experiences in the brutal Fringe Wars and exposure to the Darktide have transformed them from honourable, if unappreciated heroes of the Imperium, into traitors to their own ideals. So, when you are cleaving your way through the sublevels of Tertium and come across a lone Scab trooper, pity him for just a moment as thanks for the lifetime of service he offered to the Imperium before its fall. Think of the sacrifices he made and the comrades he lost in service to the God Emperor of mankind, beloved by all. Then bonk his head in and continue on your mission. Thanks for watching. Dystopian Chimp out.